Depression is a mental disorder that causes one to lose interest in the things that he or she usually loved to do, and again to lose interest in the foods that they usually wanted to eat. To be healthy as a whole, mental wellness plays an important role. According to reports, each year 4 out of 10 people die due to depression. Many people have suicidal thoughts, others turning to alcoholism, and others fighting this fight alone. Here with me, I'm joined by some students from the Technical University of Mombasa who are going to help me to discuss and uncover more about depression, the signs, the symptoms, and also the causes and the effects of depression. Good morning. Tell us what your name is and what do you think is the cause of depression?
My name is Elijah Opio, and I'm a student at Technical University of Mombasa. I think the COVID-19 pandemic greatly contributed to an increase in depression in the country. We saw the government putting lockdowns and curfews and stay-at-home guidelines, which led to people being in solitude. We also saw families coming together and spending a lot of time. And parents got to know their children, the children got to know their parents, and it's led to a fight.
You've said about parents having spending time with their children. To others, that's a good thing. But how has this contributed to depression?
See, the school calendar in Kenya makes it in a way that uh, children are mostly in school and spend less time with their parents. But when the COVID-19 came, we saw schools being closed for a year or so. And so the parents and children got to spend a lot of time. And this led to quarrels and fights and favoritism to other siblings, which saw some children feeling like they are being neglected. And also, the parents, to some extent, did not agree with some of the behaviors that the children were having. So we saw an increase in quarrels between parents and children, and also between parents themselves. We saw wives and husbands having some quarrels because they were not spending as much time as they did during the pandemic.
Every problem has a solution, and to the problem that you've said about parents and siblings that has contributed to depression, what do you think is the solution that can help to curb depression in such situations?
I think the government is not doing enough to curb depression. I think the government should invest more in mental health. Institutions will be put up to address this issue. The government, in my opinion, is not doing enough to address the issue of depression. I think the government should put up more institutions to address like mental health issues, and the Kenyan society also should embrace and accept that depression is there, and depression is such a sensitive issue in our country. It's not being talked about as much as it should be. So I think the government should spearhead mental health wellness, and also parents and children. Parents should talk to their children more, spend more time with their children, and get to know their children.
Last week during Mashujaa Day celebrations, President Uhuru Kenyatta opened the country, like he cancelled the curfew. Do you think that this is one of the solutions that will help to fight depression?
Depression is a long-term illness which cannot be ended in a single day. So, as much as the country was opened, people are still depressed, in my opinion. So, I think the government should, from this point, invest in mental health wellness. So, as much as the president opened the country, I think the government should invest more money in the coming financial years to institutions specially designed for mental health.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move to another student. Tell us what your name is, what do you think is the cause of depression and its effects and maybe the solution.
Kwa majina ni Solomon Simiyu, na msongo wa mawazo umesababishwa na vitu vingi, tukiwazungumzia wanafunzi hasa wa vyuo vikuu. Kuna mambo mengi ambayo yanasababisha msongo wa mawazo. Jambo la kwanza ambalo tulizungumzia ambalo tuseme kwamba linachangia msongo wa mawazo kwa wanafunzi, unapata ya kwamba mtu anapoingia katika chuo kikuu, kuna ile dhana ambayo huwa kwa jamii kwamba mtu anapoingia chuo kikuu ni mtu ambaye amekomaa akili. Kwa hivyo unapata kwamba kuna majukumu mengine ambayo yanafaa yatekelezwe na mzazi, lakini mzazi anaamua kuyaacha kwa kisingizio kwamba mtoto wake amekuwa mzima. Kwa hivyo unapata kwamba kuna changamoto mbalimbali ambazo mtoto anapitia, pengine hana chakula, hana nini, lakini kwa mawazo ya mzazi anaona kwamba huyu ni mtu mzima ambaye anafaa jitegemea au ajitafutie vitu vingine. Jambo la pili pia ambalo tunasema kwamba lachangia msongo wa mawazo kwa wanafunzi wa vyuo vikuu, unapata kwamba ni hali ya kujiingiza katika uhusiano. Kwa kwamba uhusiano wa kimapenzi pengine unawaathiri sana wanafunzi, wapata kwamba kutokana na mambo kama hayo, ndio maana kumekuwa na ongezeko la visa vya wanafunzi kuuawa kwa sababu ya masongo ya kimawazo hiyo generally.
Alafu nikiweza kuuliza, umeongelea about uhusiano wa kimapenzi wanafunzi kwa wanafunzi. Sasa wanafunzi wanafaa, when students have this kind of relationship, I think one of the things to fight depression is talking, and people believe that people in relationship tend to talk and solve problems, but you're saying that this has contributed to depression.
Katika mahusiano unapata ya kwamba naweza sema katika mahusiano kuna two parties. Sawa. Kuna ile party ambayo one party is mature na another one ambayo it's kind of always less mature, acha nitumie if that's the correct term kutumia. So pata kwamba unaweza tarajia kwamba katika mahusiano kuna watu wataketi chini waelewane, watatue shida zao jinsi ambavyo wanafaa kutatua, lakini unapata one party may be willing kuketi chini kuzungumza, na kuna another party ambayo it's not always ready for kutalk ama iron out issues. So unapata kwamba as a result of one party not being willing to iron out issues, inaleta hiyo conflict ambayo inapatikana kwa hiyo relationship.
And what do you think are the effects of depression on students?
Unapata kwamba katika mazingira ya shule, mtu anaweza kuwa ameletwa shule amekazana amesoma for like 3 years. Unapata amesoma 3 years, alafu the 4th year unapata kwamba as a result of depression unapata mwanafunzi amejiua. So unapata kwamba this student has wasted 3 good years akiwa shule. Then at the end of the 3 years, like there is nothing to be shown of what this person has achieved in school.
Let's move to the last part. What do you think are the solution
to depression? One way is that maybe one way of curbing depression ile kukuwa na a heart-to-heart conversation with the different people. Kuna zile institutions of counseling ambazo zinaweza kuwa established in the institution, like these departments of counseling. More focus ikuwe placed on the departments of counseling na zikuwe reinforced, ama students wakuwa advised to visit those areas frequently. Then parents, ukileta mtoto shule, just be responsible, make sure your child is doing well ama whatever. Then those who are in a relationship, it's always good to go for the mature part, whereby ukipata solution ukipata shida, all the parties should be willing to come together and iron the issues out, other than which your relationship iwe one-sided.
Your colleagues have talked about relationships, and another person has talked about COVID-19. What about the thick-skinned people? What can you say about them?
Well, what I can say is that most people tend to use that as a blanket. I can say a blanket to cover up their weaknesses. Si kila msee mwenye ana act strong huku nje is strong, and as much as msee anaweza jaribu kuficha hiyo weakness yake ama maybe shida zenye anapitia zisionekane physically, they just tend to give out smiles. So they're always smiling around, happy, they're just showing a happy face. So unapata in some instances they're not easily noticeable, but they usually let down their guards sometimes. So unaweza notice some little change, and you as a friend or as a colleague, you can notice your change, just go up to them, approach them, ask them about it. If they have any problem, just listen, just give them a listening ear. Sometimes listening huyo msee akitalk, maybe itakuwa imesolve half of his or her problem. So tuwape listening ear, let us approach people and to actually this thing of it's your problem, so deal with your problem. I have my own problems. Let me solve my problems. I can't handle yours. So let's talk here. Mind your business. I mind my business. No, let's be each other's keeper.
Okay, apart from sharing, let's talk about the effects. What is another effect of depression?
It can lead to alcoholism. Unapata msee anaingia into alcoholism, hajui means ya kuapproach msee amwelezee shida yake, aongee na yeye, to try and bring it out, at least it come off his or her chest, I feel at ease. So the only place yenye ana find comfort in is alcoholism. So inaanza tu polepole, at long last ina develop as a habit, so they become addicted and they become alcoholic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Depression is common in all people, either old or young, male or female. A problem shared is problem half solved. Usijiweke, share na wenzako. Stress ni less. Daisy Cherop for Cherop TV.